let's go. Okay. But did you think I was dissing you for a second?
No. Welcome, sir.
No, I just wasn't sure where I sit. Oh, sit right next to me. I don't want to sit next to me, honestly.
I'm just going to
I
go
feel like I'm
ahead.
underprepared. Everyone's got papers in front of them.
I feel like I wasn't sure where I was supposed to go.
That's what I was going to do. I just kind of read over the questions that are going to be asked, and I was like, I got these covered.
I feel like I just have to be like,
We can use this, right? Is this working? No? It is? Okay. Okay, that works.
My communications classes prepared me for this.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and start directly with the panel. I do have a short presentation, but I know a big group of our people are going to be leaving at noon, so I think the panel is probably what you're really here for. So, all right. And if we have time at the end, I'll do my presentation. It's just a little bit about the history of the ADA, okay, and accommodations in college, which we're going to cover here today with the panel as well. My name is Paige George. I'm the Disability Support Manager here at the college, and we've got some students here that want to talk about their experiences at SCC. I'm going to ask a few questions to open up, and you guys can just kind of pass the mics down, and then we'll open up to questions. Grace is going to moderate that part of it, so if there's any questions that you guys have, you can jump in at that point, okay? So if you can just say your name to start with, what your degree that you're seeking, and then let's start with the first question. Have you faced any challenges here at SCC as a student with disability? You can go ahead and start, Tori.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tori Woods. I am actually a part-time student taking a, is this better? Yes. Okay. My name is Tori Woods. I am actually a part-time transfer student. I have a degree from Truman State University in health science and minors in biology and psychology. I'm here taking human A&P. While here, I am having accommodations as I did at Truman. One of the big things that I think, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but my experience personally is having an invisible illnesses. Besides just anxiety, I have epilepsy as well, along with other autonomic issues that when professors can't really see that, or they just hear about the anxiety itself. Sometimes professors get a little bit more biased in the sense of like, they're just using this because they want extra test time. And I'm very happy to say, thank you, Paige, that here is much easier to work with the disability department, and I have found that at least my professor here has been very, very open about understanding that besides the mental that might be going on, the physical toll is extremely important too. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, perfect.
I ramble, so.
Hello, my name is Erin Staten. I'm currently getting my Associates of the Arts, hoping to transfer in the fall to start teaching and getting my history degree at Lindenwood. Currently, I am getting resources in order to help me with math because I have dyscalculia, which is a lot of people equivalent it to dyslexia with numbers, but it's just the inability to comprehend a lot of arithmetic problems and things of that nature. And I also have high functioning autism. So during my education career, a lot of the times, because I seem so well put together, I don't seem to need the extra help and the extra accommodation, but thankfully having as good of a disability office as we have, I've been able to speak freely and have those listen to my needs and have the extra time, the extra space to complete my assignments and get help where I need it.
I'm Amber. I'm here for an associate's degree as a creative writing major. I've got some of the same sort of invisible illnesses that Tori has, and mostly the problems are that since no one can see you have them, there's a lot of that pressure to be acting like a normal student, or that if you don't act like a normal student, people kind of question your work ethic, your ability to actually successfully be an academic student. And the DSS helps the professors understand that I want to be a good student and that any failings from medical aren't really on the part of me wanting not wanting to be a student, but on I physically cannot do it, and that helps the professors take that into account and not judge you more harshly based on things you can't control. And I'm gonna ramble.
Hi, I'm Trevor. I'm here to get my OT degree in occupational therapy. Now, I suffer from like vision impairment, so some of the issues I've had with classes would be reading, test taking, anything regarding online work, whether it be online tests, papers, anything. So going over to the DSS Center is really great because whether it's online, they can enhance it. I think it's Zoom text. Zoom text. Yeah, and they can upsize it for me to read, and it makes my test taking or work just that much easier to do versus where if I have paper tests, they'll actually enlarge those as well for me to take. And not only is it outside of class, but inside of class, if we have a lectured class or anything, and I need more time to take notes, I could have my teachers kind of like record them, kind of like, in a sense, what we did over Zoom classes. So I could go back, rewatch it, and get all the notes I need for classes or tests or whatnot.
Hi guys, I'm Maddie Gordon. Oh, sorry. I'm Maddie Gordon. So my degree is special education. I also want to do I want to create a business where a kid can get diagnosed with dyslexia and get help for it. That's far in the future though. The challenges I've faced as a student with a disability, so I'm ADHD, dyslexic with a visual processing disorder, and have Tourette's. So definitely I'd say reading and learning in general was really hard. Like you, like I've had like enlarged tests and or enlarged texts. I also go to like the Disabilities Center to test just alone. Definitely sitting still and paying attention is really hard.
Hello, my name is Dee, and I am currently working, well, I'm in my last semester of nursing school, so I'm excited about that. Thank you, thank you. I'm excited about it. As I'm sure you can't tell that I'm a non-traditional student, I'm actually retired and decided to go back to school. I worked in technology. I have an MBA, worked in technology for my great career, went back to school, decided I wanted to go into hospice care and palliative care because I saw the need for that. What I've found difficult about being back in school is that as I've gotten older, my eyes, I have some problems with my eyes, so that my corneas are kind of messed up, so that it's hard for me to read the screen or to be looking at a computer screen for very long. I grew up taking tests on papers. I did not grow up taking tests on computers. So when I first started my chemistry class here, taking paper tests was fine. It still took me an extra long time. The lighting wasn't good for me, but it took me, I could take them in class. But as soon as I started my nursing classes and had to take my tests on the computer, I had a really hard time. Happily, one of my professors, when I told her I couldn't read half the questions, I just kind of guessed, she said, why don't you go over to the DSS and see what they have to offer? And now they accommodate me wonderfully to be able to, have a good screen to see. I still don't like taking tests online, but they've made it much easier and have made it so that I can get through school. And I really appreciate the work that Paige and her whole group has done.
Great. All right, thanks. And a lot of you have already kind of answered the next question, but it's about accommodations. Like, what accommodations have you used at the college, and what have you found most helpful? What do you wish people knew about accommodations, basically? So, okay. Do you want to start? Tori? Or?
Yeah, I'm all good for that. I'll talk for hours. It's really bad. So the accommodations I've been given mainly is separate testing, time and a half. I'm one of the students that I vary on if I need it or not. Depends on the situation, depends on the classroom, depends on the professor. That's always the three kind of little things that are going on. I had 2 exams this week and did not need extra time or a separate space. Woohoo for me. But I do have that option, which is very nice. I also, since I am epileptic, one of the big things I have is if I have a seizure during a test, I can stop taking the test and come back. I know that sounds like a really weird thing, but since I do have like real like big seizures, if I'm doing an assignment, doing something like that, I have a seizure, I'm allowed to do it later. I know that sounds like, yeah, that makes sense, but it is accommodation I have to have. Next thing is I am in a lab setting, and I have POTS, which causes heart rate issues as well as blood pressure issues. That causes me to feel very faint, very tired, all those kind of stuff. So I have to be sitting in a lab, which again, all the labs here have seats, but at Truman, I was in a chemistry class and we had no seats at all. And that was really, really difficult for me to deal with, and I didn't have an accommodation necessarily for that at the time. I think that's like the main accommodations I use. I am in the process of getting a service dog, and we'll have a service dog in November. So that will be an accommodation I will also be receiving soon, so the dog can be with me in a lab and in my lectures.
And her name is Belle.
And her name is Belle. I just got the news yesterday
So
of the
cute.
specifics and all that. Yep, November 14th, she'll be on campus.
So before the pandemic, I really only used my accommodation when it came to math and having a separate testing room, having a allotted time be extended, and being able to use a calculator, because like I said, I have dyscalculia. But during the pandemic, because we were completely online and remote, a lot of the professors I had did not record their lectures. And I have an auditory issue as well alongside everything. So listening to them and keeping up and writing, I had a whole issue with. So I was able to record it myself with the permission of the professor, of course, and with Paige, and be able to go back and rewrite what notes I was missing, or be able to take like a screenshot or take a piece of that video and be like, hey, what do you mean when you're explaining this part of the lesson? Or is it like, or use examples to make it make more sense to my brain. But at this current moment, now that we're back on campus, thankfully, I really just use the separate test taking and a lot of time, the calculator.
So I also have POTS like Tori. It's one of our shared illnesses. But I also have what's called gastroparesis, where my stomach and all internal organs down there don't really function properly. But with the POTS, some days they give me accommodations for lenient attendance times, because some days I'll wake up in the morning, get out of bed, and then just pass out on the floor for the next half hour to an hour, and I can't always make it to class on time because the heart rate will drop and the blood pressure will skyrocket and you fall to the ground. You pass out. And it also, you need to stay hydrated and have like salty foods, because that keeps your blood pressure and your heart rate from dropping. It keeps your blood flowing well. So I have accommodations to have food and drink in classrooms, because that keeps me from having an episode while in the middle of a lecture. And I have the separate testing rooms for anxiety and ADHD, extended time, the time and a half to take tests. Those are the only ones I really have to use right now. My professors are really lenient about emergency medical appointments because of stomach problems, emergency surgeries to remove gallbladders. They're pretty good about being understanding that I'm not going to be in class at that time, especially when Paige is able to contact them and tell them that this is not just an impromptu thing, this is something that happens regularly. So it's useful.
Really just the accommodations that I use are like the enlarged text or the enlarged papers as well. And prior to like, I guess the pandemic, when I was in classes, that was a time where I had to ask the teachers to like record their lectures so I could go back over and take my notes. But really, since we've come back to school, I haven't come across any classes yet where the teachers have not done that. They typically all have them pre-recorded for you to watch on your own time. And that's basically the accommodations that I use as of now.
So I usually just use just use testing accommodations. And that's mostly for ADHD and my visual processing disorder and dyslexia. For example, I get enlarged text. I get extended time on the test because, it takes a long time to read. I also have this new accommodation I actually got this year. I get to use this special pen and a special notebook. And basically, it can record the lecture of what the teacher's saying, and then you can go back on it and touch the paper to, I don't know, just where you were writing, and it says exactly what the teacher was saying. So that has been really useful and all of that. But
Yeah.
What is that called?
It's called the LiveScribe pen, if anybody's interested. Yeah, and we do check them out to students for the semester, so.
Yeah.
We check them out you can check it out for free from our office for the semester, yes. They're not free to us, but they're free to you.
We got fascinated real quick.
I like that one.
Oh, gosh. I really encourage a lot of folks who might be interested in going back to school to go back, because even though it's kind of scary, and as we get older, we do tend to get more anxiety. We also tend to not be able to see as well, maybe not be able to read the computers and deal with computers as well. And that's what I love so much about, being able to do this. So what I have is usually I get my own room by myself to take a test. I get a large monitor so that I'm able to read the stuff on the screen without causing a lot of eye exhaustion, because that's what happens. My eyes get so tired. And I do get extra time on the questions as well. I've noticed that several of the nursing students, because we're in a very high anxiety program, a lot of them have high anxiety and are also getting accommodations through DSS. So what I really love the best is that they provide a safe environment for us to do our work, to show what we know, and to be able to progress without, without dropping out, because otherwise it gets too scary. So.
Okay, I think we have a group of people that have to leave at noon, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to ask the panelists if you have any questions for them.
Hi, I have a million questions. And, and I'm so impressed with all of you, and I wish that we could all stay past noon, but, so I apologize that we have to leave at that time. But my biggest question is about self-advocacy. So all of you are such amazing self-advocates. What advice do you have to other people who have disabilities on how they can become better or more effective self-advocates themselves?
I can go. Because I'll actually talk about some of the work I did at Truman that was specific for disability advocacy. I established an organization at Truman called CHIA. It was a Chronic Health Issues Association. Our main goal was to kind of bring awareness to the issues on campus. If you don't know Truman State University, you know that a lot of us have really bad anxiety. It is a high anxiety school. And yeah, it's a high anxiety school. And one of the big things that what I, was pushing was working with disability accommodation centers, because we were having so much trouble with the one person. She was working as hard as she can, but she didn't have enough support. And one of the things we also talked about was self-advocacy. And that's something that I've struggled with. I think all of us have struggled with. And one of the big things I always say is, especially what I've learned also from support groups, is that, you have to be in a sense of selfish, but not in a bad way. So in a sense, you're not being selfish by saying, hey, I think I need help with this. Because, we have an idea of a normal functioning person. We are not that person. And that is okay. And we should be able to get the accommodations for that, as everyone should have an equal basis and equal chance for success, especially in school. I want to become a medical social worker. That's my goal. I really am excited to do that, and I know to do that I need as much support as I can, because if I don't get the support I need, my patients won't get the support they need. I think that speaks for everyone. If you're becoming a teacher, if you're an OT, whatever you're doing, if you don't have the support and the resources you need, your patients, your students are going to suffer. So I think that's also something to keep in mind, is that you're not only going and using the resources and advocating for your own needs, but you're advocating for the future of people you are going to be touching and the people you are going to be learning and teaching and doing all that about. And I think it sets a good example. I would also say that one of the things to do is like start local government advocates. I was also in student government. I was the health, wellness, and safety chair. I am insane. I do too much. I understand that. And another big thing that I really focused on was working with students with disabilities. I established a disability rights advocate position and I had a friend who took that position up. And that, again, brought attention to a group of students who are kind of like secondary or could feel secondary. And once we did that, we passed several I guess, amendments or like just kind of information that is presented to the college that did bring some change, especially concerning disability access and disability support on campus from teachers, and explaining a little bit more and asking for more training. And that's something that we actually were able to accomplish. And it's still something we need work on. It's not going to change overnight. But I recommend to anyone who has a disability, anyone who, you know, is concerned about the future, is that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. And you getting the proper resources you need not only helps you, but it helps the people around you if you want to take it more as a less of a personal thing.
What I have to say is that before I came to SCC, a lot of my time in high school, I was an advocate for those that could not speak on it. My brother has very low-functioning autism, and a lot of the times they would look at him and go, well, you can't do that because you're autistic. My brother's one of the smartest guys I know. He's incredible with computers. And so I wouldn't let up on it. I'd be like, put him in a computer class by himself. See how he can accomplish more than your everyday quote-unquote normal student. But you yourself, if you don't have a support system, you need to be your support system, and you do not let up. If you can't find that person that's like, I can't accommodate that, you go, cool, I'm gonna go find someone else that I can accommodate, because I know I need this accommodation. It is the only way I can keep up with the class and keep up with my grades, and if you don't want to give it to me at that time, then fine, I'll figure out how to do it. Because there's not a lot of people that will actually keep hammering on the issue. They'll be like, oh, well, I guess I was told I can't have this accommodation, so I'll just struggle through it. And by the time you're halfway through the semester, you're like, what is going on? I don't know anything. So just being your own advocate, being very, I guess, stubborn. If someone looks at you and is like, well, that's kind of weird, why would you need that? Be like, because I do. And I'm gonna get it somehow, some way. Otherwise, it's just not gonna be pretty.
Was there anybody else that wanted
Yeah.
to? Should we just go to the next question, or does anybody else have another question? Should I go on with my questions then? Okay. First of all, I wanted to say hi. I'm Grace Moser. I am a history faculty here on campus, and that's my service dog, Athos. So I love that you guys are up here and talking about disability, and as someone who recently, you know, this is a recent thing for me to have a disability that is an invisible disability. It's so cool to hear how you guys are still accessing education. And I also I don't want to make it about me, but I have twin boys who are on the autism spectrum. And so it's made me a better, like, advocating for myself and also advocating for them. I think what you guys had for advice is really great. So I want to ask this question from a faculty perspective, right? How can faculty support you as a student with disability?
The paper was a good idea.
It literally was. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes. What can we as faculty do to support you better in the classroom? when
I
you have-
say just like listen to us. Like we're coming to you. It's hard for us to come to you and open up. So if we need something, just be there. Listen and just I just say provide as much as you can. But yeah.
I think that sums it up.
I think it's important. It was the faculty member who told me that I needed to go to DSS. And she listened to me. And I think that is the main thing. And in fact, it was difficult for me to go because I wasn't brought up to be looking for help. And I think even, younger people as well have the same situation. They want to be independent and not make waves, not be different. So if a faculty member can partner with the person, even if they recommend DSS and that person may not be, may be afraid, to go with them, I think is a real help, to go with them to DSS and talk
So
about
walk
it.
them over to DSS. I like that. Does anybody here
Yeah.
before you guys?
Oh, I
go
was
ahead.
going to add on to that. I think that faculty should maybe have a little bit more better understanding of DSS because as all of us up here who clearly go through them, the only time you ever hear about it through teachers is at the beginning of each semester when they cover the syllabus and they just kind of briefly go over DSS and somewhat of what it is and then move on. So like, I don't believe that the full class gets to understand the aspect of what DSS really does, how helpful they are. So I just think a little bit more information needs to be passed around on that, and especially to the student community.
That's really interesting, because as someone who goes over the syllabus on day one, that's probably not at the top of my list as an instructor, so I'm going to take that and file it away. Anyone else wanted to comment on that question?
Are you good? Yeah, you're good. Okay, last thing, and I think I've said this at Truman, is just better training. Better, there are, I'm assuming, well, I guess my mom would know. You guys have days where you come in, right? And you guys have days where you kind of do just work days before we come in. And I think what would be really nice is to see, I believe you do
Oh man, Paige can totally talk about this. You can
Yeah.
lead.
This year was the first time I was invited to do a full faculty panel.
Yeah, that's exactly what
And
I was going to say.
I talked for a good hour and 15 minutes, and I had fielded questions.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to make that a regular thing, but in the past, it's always been like open to faculty to come if they wanted to, and it would usually
hasn't
be the
been
same ones
mandatory.
that would come. So,
We'll just
but
have to
this
drag
year,
our teachers with us next time.
very good.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something Paige and I have been talking about,
Right.
like
And having
familiar
a
with.
panel even for
Yeah.
faculty, I think just a short faculty panel, or student panel for faculty could be really
Yes.
informative too, so.
And to add on to what he say, a lot of the times with how we portray disabilities in just the community, a lot of what you think of first when I say the word disability is someone in a wheelchair, someone who's blind, someone that has a physical disability. But when you go over it in the beginning of the semester with the syllabus, being like, if you are just having any sort of trouble, not if you have the physical or invisible, any sort of trouble, go and see if the DSSS can help you if they have tools. Because then I bet you'll have a student that's like, oh, I can actually go and get that. Because I think that's why they're missing that. Is they look at it and they go, well, I don't fit this label per se. I can't go get it.
That's totally true, because I do that with myself, like even with myself.
And I think maybe that's something that I can work on too, in terms of advertising is not the right word, but promoting the office.
Informing.
Right, yeah, informing, because having some signs around campus with different students and different needs, and just showing, it's not just, you're right, it's not just the student in the wheelchair. There's the majority of our students that receive accommodations have invisible disabilities, and just have that explanation make more of a difference.
I think there's so many students. You guys were talking about how certain campuses are a high-stress environment. I feel like every college experience is a really high-stress environment. Some are better at managing
Yeah.
it than others. And I don't think that we recognize as much the, like, crippling anxiety and depression as being
Yes.
debilitating,
Exactly.
you know, a disability. So there's a lot of students, I think, that wouldn't place themselves in that category for stigma-related reasons, and then also just because there is so much of this idea of, I'm independent, I need to do things by myself. So thank you for sharing that. What access issues have you faced in post-secondary education? If you can share some access issues that you've run into.
I'll go again. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to talk this entire time. Again, not at this school. At my past school, lab accommodations are very, very difficult when you are trying to get a degree in science. Big thing, first thing is that last year was my senior year, and unfortunately, my seizure started again, so I had to go home. I was unable to complete an anatomy lab. And I tried to get accommodations for that, but I was working at the medical school with cadavers. And as someone who already has anxiety and now has health issues, being around cadavers is a little more scary than it was like about 5 years ago for me. So one, not being there kind of made it difficult, obviously, because I'm not getting the hands-on experience. But the other thing I was immediately told was, you're already too behind, and it was a week I was gone. And stuff like that, or even like there was a regular anatomy lab, and I still was not getting that access, even though they were doing a lot of virtual access. And so that's hard. That's hard being told just because you can't physically be there doesn't mean that you can like completely not do something. Another thing I was told by a professor, I don't remember what year it was, that actually I think it was my freshman year, is that I was taking a science course, and even though I've had it in the past where I've been able to do like labs or something from home, she basically told me there is no way I can do it from home because I'm not getting enough experience, and said I had to withdraw from the course.
And then meanwhile, the pandemic happens and you're doing labs from home.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, all right, but yeah, so again, I'm not trying to just hark on the science, but that's my experience because that's where I was most of the time. That was like where I've struggled the most, I think.
So thankfully, I've never had issues because this is my first ever place being in post-secondary education. But I have an eldest brother who is also on the autism spectrum, and he went to MOBAP, and he was really struggling in a class, and he went forward towards MOBAP and was like, I am really struggling in this class, I need accommodation. And they looked at him and went, do you have an IEP or a 504? And he's like, no, I don't. I just need the extra help. And they went, sorry, we can't help you. So just being able to also look at someone who does not have anything written paper-wise, it's like, I am disabled, just being like, if they're coming forward and be like, hey, can I get this help, please? Being an open-minded and seeing, because maybe you might lead them to know, like, oh, I do have late diagnosed autism, or I do have something that is inhibiting me in my education.
I'm surprised they asked for an IEP or 504 at the college level.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Paige, do you mind talking about like what process we have?
Yeah, no.
And we do require some documentation, but a medical report, a letter from a doctor, anything like that would work too. So anything that showed his diagnosis, it doesn't have to be an IEP or written evaluation at all. So, but there are some schools that require recent testing results, which the ADA Amendments Act pretty much said that we shouldn't be doing that anymore. That was in 2008. So there are some schools that haven't caught up with the times yet. But yeah, that's part of there is a process. Every school has their own process, but it's, after the ADA Amendments Act was passed in 2008, the process was meant to be more opened up and less burdens put on the students, less barriers on the students for receiving those accommodations. And not just students, but in workplace, in, wherever accommodations are needed. Yeah.
Does anyone else want to answer the question about access issues that you run into? No? Okay.
Nope.
So you kind of talked about this before, but how do you communicate with faculty about your needs? And how would you like faculty members to communicate with you about your accommodations? I know you talked about on the first day talking more about what DSS is, but now let's imagine that you're in the class. Like, how do you communicate with your professors, and how would you like them to communicate with you?
I think a very big issue is making sure that it's constant communication, because sometimes students walk up and it's one and done in their mind. I'll just go and tell my teacher that I need this accommodation. But some of the times, like she was saying earlier, she doesn't use all of her accommodations sometimes. Sometimes she doesn't need that extra test. Having that and going forward and being like, I'm really struggling with this unit, so I will need to go and use my accommodation. And I think making it a very casual conversation, because again, our generation has severe anxiety, making it not like impending doom, like, oh, if I don't get it, I'm screwed forever. Being like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. Here are my like thoughts on like where I'm at right now, what's the game plan, and going forward with that said game plan.
So would you want your faculty to come to you if they see you struggling, or would you want them to, I think that's part of.
I think that goes by student to student, because sometimes a student in their mind, because again, the independents might not see at that time, like, wow, I'm really not catching this, because to them, they're like, okay, I'll just keep going and seeing what happens. So if a faculty does notice and be like, hey, are you having some issues? Right. Is there something I can do? Or if the student does have that sort of independence, because it's, you have to
obviously discreetly,
you have to work towards that independence and having that confidence. Because I know what my freshman year of being here, I chickened out all the time. I literally came to Paige and I was like, I know I should have talked to my teacher, but I'm going to talk to you first. And she's like, you have to talk to your teacher before you talk to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll talk to my teacher.
Can you do it for me?
That's fine.
And I'll do it, yeah. We can practice those.
I think that's interesting too, because I teach a lot of online classes, and I get a notification of who needs extended time, and I program it in at the beginning. But I think, like, being aware of like reaching out maybe at some point in the semester and be like, hey, how's it going? Like, are things going okay with you? Would you feel like targeted if like I did that? Of course, you probably wouldn't know if I'm doing that to everybody or not, so it wouldn't be like isolating you out. I should be doing that with everybody. That's okay. So there's this thing called universal design. Have you ever heard of that? It's where you design your college classes to meet all the, like, every need from the outset. So instead of designing it thinking that you have to accommodate students, you build the accommodations in for everybody. And so I really try to do that in my class. I think it's really important because I think it levels the playing field and doesn't put the pressure on the responsibility on the students to ask for accommodations. It's pre-built in.
And like some examples of that might be like designing your test in such a way where they didn't have to be timed, or memorization wasn't an issue, so you don't have to record them to check if they're doing.
Yeah, my tests are open note.
Right.
They are timed, but that's only because I don't know why I still do that, actually. I should probably change that.
Right.
But one of the things that I do is have alternate ways to submit an assignment. So you can write an assignment or you can record talking about it. And so,
which is perfect, universal divine. Love that.
Yeah. I think that like the biggest thing is just making sure, I think that we all know that about HIPAA and ADA violations. So I mean, if you're saying, hey, how's it going? That's fine. It's again, if you're like, hey, are you having seizures still? That would be different. You know what I mean? Or how is your anxiety today? Is a little bit different. But yeah, I
or
think
what is your service dog for? That's one.
So like, again, just being like, being general. I mean, I think that all of us wouldn't mind being reached out as long as it's obviously not us being like, hey, are you still, you still sick? Have you gotten better yet? That kind of thing. I think we can all agree. As long as it's not like
bold approach.
Just get right into it. No, just as long as it's, I think, more of a generalized, I think we'll all feel a little bit less anxious about that. I think that's,
Great, thanks. The next question I have is about your job. So do you disclose your disability in employment settings? If so, how?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to keep going.
I don't work, so please.
Okay, so I only work on the weekends. I work on Saturday, Sunday. If you want to come to Unchained St. Louis, this is a little, promotion. It's an escape room.
Is it?
It is. Off of Spencer Road in St. Peter's. Anyway, it's a very good environment to be in. It is not retail and it's not restaurant because I will physically not be able to do that. I've been very, very open with my the owners and my managers. And obviously I'm not a person to hide what's going on because if I drop and have a seizure, I think that's not going to just only freak me out. So I want to be honest about what the issues with anxiety and stuff. So they allowed me, I have a pillow and a yoga mat in the back office. So if I'm not feeling good, I can go lay down back there. With resetting rooms, I have to stand up and down, and that the POTS doesn't like that. I get help with that. And my owners are always very, very accommodating with the fact that it's not something I can control to an extent. So they, at least, again, I'm very lucky in a sense that they are very understanding. If I'm having a really rough day, they would like me to come in, but if I can't come in, they'll kind of work with me. Or if I'm like not feeling good but enough to come in, they'll let me just sit there. And I still make money, which is nice. So I think being open with your job is always very important, but I think that in a lot of jobs, it's still not good enough. Like if I used to work at McAllister's. If I went up to my manager at McAllister's Deli and said, hey, I'm gonna need to sit for half my shift, there's no way. So again, I think it's the type of job, but I think it's also, if you're being honest and open with your employer, I mean, they can't completely ice you out due to ADA, but if you're honest and open with them, they're more likely to give you the needs. Besides just kind of not saying anything and waiting.
So one of my past jobs was St. Louis Bread Company, and when you apply it with the application, they actually do have a section that is explaining what the ADA is, your rights if you are disabled, and you click yes or no. And the job application actually went further and was like, what is your disability? So they gave you a list, and I was autistic, so I am autistic. I sat down with my manager at the time, and she's like, what does your autism look like? Will you get overwhelmed with drive-through? Are you overwhelmed with lights? What is it? And we kind of formed a plan, so a lot of the time I was not doing drive-through, the speaking part. I was mostly staying in one section doing the food, so I wouldn't get overwhelmed, because if I was to get overwhelmed, I was allowed to step off the floor, do whatever I need, stim it out, have a panic attack, whatever, and I would be able to have that environment to do so and come back. And she would check in afterwards and was like, are you okay? Is there anything else I can get for you? Do you need another break or whatever? And going forward from there. But she is right, there is a lot of jobs that can in some way turn you away because you're disabled. They can't outright do it because of course there's laws that protect that. But they can be like, well, you just weren't a good fit. And instead of them telling you why you weren't a good fit, you are sitting there going, is it because I'm disabled? Because you do not want that person representing who you are as a business. And I think that's something we really need to strive towards working on, is allowing those who have disabilities to be the forerunners of these companies.
I'm wondering if that could be some of our workforce development, to set up those conversations with businesses as part of our outreach. No, I was just saying, I think that maybe we should, that might be a good thing for us to work on.
It would be, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's some resources.
That sounds like amazing. When you said that they asked you to identify what your disability was, I was like, eee. But then, it sounds like you found someone that is familiar with autism and the differentiations, and so it sounds like go bread company.
In the contract, there is a lot of companies have a no retaliation because of that. Because if they do have that conversation with you, that has to stay between you and whatever higher up you speak. And some companies, I won't name drop, that I've been at, actually I had to fight to be like, I am autistic, I need this accommodation. And they kind of looked at me and went, well, that sucks. And I went, cool, I'm going to go to HR then, because it's in your handbook. That in some degree you have to respect someone that has a disability due to the ADA.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yep, anybody down at the other end? Yep. Okay. Anybody in the audience?
These are kind of the spokesmen.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're very chatty.
I get to do microphone duty today, Michael. Michael's been on microphone duty all week.
I'm a very chatty person. You can
I just want to say it's refreshing to hear directly from you. And as a faculty member, sometimes I have this yearning to know more about the story behind someone who's been identified through Paige's office, as having a disability. But then there's privacy, so I can't say, well, what's this person's story? I see the category and I see what I'm supposed to do, but I want to hear from you, and that's why this kind of a session is so important. And since it's being recorded, people will be able to learn from you and continue to learn from you through the website, which will have this video of this session. I wish there were administrators from SCC at this session. I think they need to hear from you too, not just create an office and employ it with people like Paige, but they need to hear directly from you, and I hope they tune into the video. And I am all for more education for faculty about these issues. The vast majority of us are trained in our field, and then we pick up everything else along the way. And I've been a faculty member at this institution for a long, long, long time, and this kind of education is emergent, but it should have been there in place from the very beginning. But institutions are learning, and so are we. So thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Very kind of you.
Yeah, I think also maybe student testimonials will be something that that'll.
Yeah.
So, sorry, student testimonials might be something that might be interesting, at least for administrators, to see that, like, if you're going through that and if a student is willing to share their experience, that might also kind of bring a little bit more, like, when you see the face of a person versus just reading on a paper.
That kind of leads in some of the stuff that I want to bring more awareness, because I'm adjunct faculty in the math department, but I also tutor math in the tutoring center. And I have personal background in this because my daughter receives services from here. She's received services when she was in high school. And when she came over here at the time, a few semesters, she needed those accommodations. And just like many of yours, hers were invisible. So I, as her mom, knew what she needed to do to fight for it. But what I'm very impressed with is you all are able to advocate for yourself. That was something she was scared to do, coming right out of high school, even when she was in high school. And knowing that she needed the accommodation because things were just too overwhelming from her from her mental health perspective, what's going on with her, to deal with things on a regular basis, testing, and so on and so forth. So seeing this is very, very promising. And I would love, as Michael said, that if we can get this out to more faculty, full-time and adjunct, as well as administrators. This is something they really, truly need to know about, because there are students like you in everybody's class, and not all of them are working with Paige and DSS. And that's the problem. Maybe because some of them may not be diagnosed, but a teacher, instructor, a professor may know there's just something, seems like they may need that help, something that may be off. They just have that instinct from working for a number of years in education. They just kind of, so you hone in certain things and then recognize it. They may fill out, which I have done before, fill out a form, a student concern form, and maybe that something will be done with that, but I never know whatever happens to those forms. But it's something that at least I used to do, because the path that I went through with my daughter just made me more aware. And I've worked in many different states throughout the different parts of the United States, in the West Coast, the East Coast, the South, and now in the Midwest. And I've run across it everywhere. So it's not just in one particular region, because I've been, like I said, in all these different places. So, but this is the first place that I've worked at that had accommodation, an actual office, an actual place that students can come to and have, services provided for them. Never at any of the other institutions I've been to. 2-year high school, middle school, 4-year institutions that I've worked at have not had it. So this is impressive, and I wish that there was a way that we can accommodate everybody, even if they don't know they have an identifiable or diagnosis at that moment. If we were assured that if we reported that there's something seems that this student might need some help with, and I'm just getting that out to you now on campus with this student of concern form, what can we do to really help them? You know, that would be really great. But I just wanted to just applaud all of you. And Paige, that presentation you did, you said earlier, if that was that recorded?
I don't think it was, no.
Okay, because that would have been great and fabulous. You know, every year we have to do the Title IX, right? Why can't that be something like that we have to go through and view? Something that's put together like that. That would be something wonderful for everybody.
That's
the
something I could do
administrators and
as
full
a,
staff.
I could maybe post on Canvas
Yeah.
or something like that. I
Yeah.
could record it myself
Yes.
and do
And
it that
just
way.
like the young lady said, the testimonials, I mean, little clips of testimonials that could be saved and people can go and look at for faculty, staff, can look at, administrators would be awesome too. Because once they have that connection or actual hearing it and seeing it from a student perspective, what they need from the other side, from being behind the desk, behind the podium, being at that board, it makes a difference, I think, to most people. Because it's
I'd really like to create a section on my website specifically for faculty. That is a goal of mine, and sharing resources like that, this and the handbook, yep.
Mine's, I guess, kind of following up with that. Paige, I just had an idea, so now it's on the microphone for everyone to hear. So like the ACE Center has their, in the menu in Canvas, the ACE Center has their thing, which is very important. Could DSS have a menu item in every single Canvas course so students could access that straight from Canvas automatically there? The instructors can still talk about it at the beginning of the semester, but then there's more resources right there that,
Right.
I mean, you would have to put that together, but
Right.
maybe that's an easy way to get it out. Canvas is,
Yeah.
you know, everyone has to use it in all of the classes.
I didn't know ACE had a specific section, so, yeah.
I know you had to fight for that, but
I didn't even know that existed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that I can talk to Canvas office.
yeah. Or in the welcome module. There's a resource button already. Right, but if there could be one just for DSS. Yeah. Right, no, like an odd. Right, so everyone has to make it visible. Just a thought.
That's a great thought, thanks.
What about the, oh, I'm sorry. What about the ACE Center having, do they do referrals to DSS on a regular basis? Because I'm wondering if that would be helpful as well. So many people use the ACE Center, I think, use the ACE Center for assistance.
There's no official DSS referral form, right? There's just a,
Right.
we were playing around with the thing under Vicky
Right.
where you could specify, because I piloted that, you could specify who to send them to
Okay.
for like expanding the student of concern form to include like a referral to disability services. But that didn't happen on a broad
Right.
campus-wide.
There's a lot of flux right now that's going on in ACE tutoring, so there's really no identifiable person that they would send something like that to at this moment, the way they have that hierarchy in terms of who's running it and who's doing this portion or working with the managing the program itself.
And I will say that I think I've gotten a lot more faculty referrals this year, and I think it's because I had that conversation perhaps in the in-service about how you can approach, have that conversation with the student. And the way that it's been done the most, and I think the way I like it, is when the faculty member sends an email to the student and CCs me and introduces me in the email as somebody that they can set up a meeting with or talk to about any concerns that they have. So versus the faculty member just emailing me and say, hey, can you contact the student? Because that cold call can be a little bit awkward. But if the teacher is introducing the student to me, then it's a lot easier to have that conversation. I think, would you all agree that that would
Yeah.
be? Yeah.
I also like the idea of walking the students over.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
we used-
agree.
I
And
used
I
to
have
do
had
that.
several teachers do that just in the last couple of
Yeah.
weeks, too.
I sent someone to you, but I didn't walk them over. Like, I think I
okay.
would have, if I would have thought about it, I would have walked them over at that
I
moment.
But it
also
does
think-
give that peace
oh,
of mind, I
sorry.
think.
I
Go
also
ahead.
think, because I took a College 101 class, but I did it through Francis House Central, and at that time I had the IEP. So I was with a teacher that was qualified under special education. She walked us to the campus and went, a lot of you are going to probably need to talk. And we met Paige George personally. We went to the office and touring, but I don't know if that's included in what SCA offers as like the college 101 class if you don't
No,
get a
it's
chance.
not.
So maybe putting that in there and giving a tour, because they do tour the college, and being like, this is also an area.
They don't really do a tour, a physical tour of the college anymore. I think they do like a virtual tour.
A virtual one.
Right.
But what do they do on the?
Oh,
don't
because
do
when
any
I
tour.
came here for my college 101, it wasn't so much as a tour they did, but more of a scavenger hunt to explore.
It was like
Yeah.
a scavenger.
But it really didn't necessarily cover all the basis of what the school had to offer.
Yeah.
It was more of like, these are the buildings, these are what these buildings, are the classes that will be inside these buildings. So in a sense, like, you get the gist of what buildings you'll need to go to for classes.
So that's another option with College 101. There's, like, we have the ACE Center come in and talk, and maybe Disability Services
Right.
could get in and talk.
Right. Have to talk
Just
to
have
Vicki
it
about that. I
like
don't know.
be in class, but, you know, there's a lot of,
Even just a 5-minute,
yeah,
video.
or even a video.
What now?
A video is what I was saying.
Yeah.
Do we want to do some more questions?
What now?
Does anybody have any other questions that they want to ask? Okay. Do we want to keep going with questions then?
It is 12:30.
12:32?
Yeah, we could probably wrap up then. It's an hour. Then some of them might have classes to
Let
get
me,
to.
I'm just going to read and see if I have any burning questions.
I was like, I don't have classes, but
Oh, I want to dish some dirt.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Can you tell me about a time a faculty member was not helpful?
Oh, absolutely. I won't name drop because I'm not that kind of dude. But I was in high school. I was a sophomore, and at the time I had a lot more help with my IEP. And I was in what they call a class within a class. So you have the main teacher who's teaching said subject, and then the support teacher. At that time, I could not listen and write at the same time. I had that, I'm still learning it, but I could not, especially with math. And my teacher, she was gone for a couple of weeks because she had some emergency. And she came back, and she did not tell the sub that I needed the extra notes that was in my IEP. And when I was told to go and talk to her and communicate with her, she looked at me and went, well, that's not my problem. And I had to go to my case manager, and my case manager had to light a fire under her to be like, you have to give him the notes, because he does not know what's going on. But having that teacher there, she still, I think, is there too. And a lot of the time, what would happen is the main central math teacher and the support teacher would blow over anyone that was qualified to be on an IEP. They would just really focus on your normal average students, so all of us had to like have a little group together, be like, okay, what'd you get for question 5 and how did you do it? Because I have no clue what's going on, and made our own study group. It really wasn't until our principal got involved, it's like, you have to follow these children's IEPs. We will get in serious trouble. And they almost did. They almost got in some serious trouble.
I think Tori's kind of talked about it, but like how people aren't.
Have a story? What about positive experience?
Yeah, do you have a positive experience with a faculty member?
I can share. So I've actually had really great faculty in the past, like all of my years of education. I mean, I don't really have like a specific time, but well, I guess I do. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was just diagnosed a year ago with dyslexia and a visual processing disorder. So, you know, it's pretty new to me. Just finding that out at that time was shocking because I've went through school all these years and thought something was wrong with me and didn't know until then. Anyway, so this teacher would stay after school and teach me for about an hour. After even teaching the whole class, I'd have to stay again and then go over all this stuff. And then she would do like reviews with me. She would kind of almost help me in a way with like the quiz. Like she would give me the questions, what were on the quiz with it. I don't know, she was just really helpful and I'm appreciative of her.
I forgot about a negative experience. Can I give it real quick?
Go for it.
Again, don't laugh at me, Beth. Again, I love Truman State University. I love the school. I love the faculty. This specific one faculty member last year, again with anatomy, this is the lecturer, not the lab professor. I had just taken an exam. It was the first exam I had taken in person after everything that was going on. I was having medication changes, so that was not helping my ability to recall stuff. And I didn't do very well on that exam. I unfortunately got a D or an F. And my professor came up to me after class and he said, I'm not gonna lie, I'm very disappointed in you. And when I tell you I cried in my car for a good 10 minutes, that, even though it had nothing to do with my disability or anything like that, the fact that I had a professor who said I was doing so well and was disappointed in me, and I had taken that in the disability center. So like having that, like taking it later and taking it at a different time and being told that, even though I was basically learning on my own because he didn't do any Zoom, was very, very detrimental, not only to like, as a student, like why would you say that to a student, but also to like me as like my confidence with, you know, with my issues I was having. Because again, that was like, again, it's not good enough. So anyway,
That's amazing that the first instinct was you're a terrible person, not what's going on. Like you were doing so good. Is there something happening right
and
now?
it wasn't like I hadn't emailed him like 3 times a week or anything like that. You know, I was keeping him in the loop. He was very nice, and then he was like, I'm very
I need his
disappointed
teacher's
with you."
name and no, I'm just kidding.
No, otherwise he was fine, like, but
He's gonna be getting some hate mail from me.
yeah. I promise Truman is a good school. I swear. I know sounds like I'm just like dissing it. I love the school. It's just the culture of the
You're
school.
giving your
and some
honesty. You're being
professors.
honest. That's good.
Yes.
It's just a
yes,
few
I am.
bad people overall.
Yeah, it can be
Yeah, just a
anywhere.
few.
I mean, we've had some issues with faculty
Absolutely.
in the past.
Absolutely. There's a little bit everywhere. You'll
Yeah.
find it. Yep.
You've got all the tea.
What's the dirt on that? What's that?
Well,
Drink tea, but I'll listen
on
to
that
it.
note, I want to thank everybody for coming, and especially you guys. Thanks a lot for coming and sharing your experiences. It was, I think, and the fact that it's being recorded, it'll be there for, yeah, I'm really excited about that. What now? Maybe we can share this recording with faculty. I think that'd be great. Yeah, I'll look. Okay, stop there. Yeah, right before that.
Yeah, it's just us two.
It's just us.
Yeah.
We're
All
just
right,
like,
thanks
hey,
a lot,
we're-
everybody. All right.